My wife and business partner almost killed my daughter. The evidence shattered everything. My name is Pedro Méndez. I'm 45, I own a construction company, and for 20 years I built things people pointed to and said, "He did that." But all of that pride, all of that concrete and steel meant nothing when I sat in a fluorescent-lit hospital room watching the machines keep my 16-year-old daughter alive. Alicia was the center of my life. She'd been a little blur of scrapes and laughter for as long as I can remember. Relentless, opinionated, and certain she would change the world. I'd drawn plans on napkins while she learned to hold a hammer. She loved loud music, old movies, and she had a way of rewriting every joke I told until it was funny. Her mother, Diana, and I had built a life around her. Or at least I thought we had. It began one ordinary Friday. I'd been late at the office, reviewing bids until the light changed. When I got home, the house smelled like dinner, but there was a quiet edge to everything. Diana was in the kitchen, acting like she didn't notice the tension in my shoulders. Alicia's door was shut. I knocked. No answer. I opened the door. The window was cracked and there was a ladder against the side of the house. My stomach dropped before I even saw her in the yard. She was on the grass, motionless. The rest of that night is a blur of urgency. An ambulance, bright lights, the hospital's cold corridors. The doctor's words were short and blunt. The fall was serious. "There's little chance she'll wake up," he said. I sat with her in the ICU, hands raw from gripping the hospital rail. And when I took her limp fingers, I found a small, crumpled piece of paper folded tight in her fist. "Dad, if anything happens to me, check the camera I put in my room." My head snapped up. A camera? Alicia would never, except she might. She was careful, and when things felt wrong, she had this instinct to protect. I folded that scrap of paper into my pocket like a fuse. I told Diana I was going home to get clothes. She nodded and cried softly, the practiced sorrow of someone who has learned how grief looks. At home, the camera was almost invisible, tucked into the corner of Alicia's room. My phone connected to the app and I watched the footage. What played back on my screen became the axis of my life tipping off its socket.
Alicia on the phone, voice small and anxious. The door opens. Diana, calm at first. Fernando, my longtime business partner, quiet and efficient. Words I couldn't make out clearly at first. Then a shove, a crack of a head hitting wood. Alicia going down and not getting up. Diana saying, "We'll move her, make it look like an accident." The recording ended and I sat in the dark holding a video of my wife and my partner doing something monstrous to our daughter. There's a strange animal part of a father that wakes then. I copied the footage to a drive, put it in the safe, and called the police. I wanted them cuffed on the spot. I wanted their names carved into the ledger of truth so everyone could see. The officers who came were careful, professional, and they warned me that moving too fast could compromise a case. They needed chain of custody, they said. I understood the words and not the comfort they were supposed to carry. At the hospital, Diana was gone. She'd said she was resting at home. I sat beside Alicia and told her stories from when she was small. The time she tried to use my hard hat as a throne. The first time she beat me at soccer. I wanted to give her parts of the life I could still control. When the detective arrived at my house, I gave him the drive and watched his face go flat. They moved methodically then. Interviews, warrants, a private investigator I'd hired digging into months and weeks of text messages and bank transfers. What we pulled up showed this wasn't an affair of hearts. There were secret accounts, transfers disguised as payments to shell suppliers, offshore accounts where money had been siphoned away. Fernando had been cheap with ethics long before he was greedy. Diana had signed documents. Her signature was everywhere. The motive became clear. power and money, and a clan that would have left me out of both the company I'd built and the life we had. Alicia must have found out. I stopped sleeping. I stopped listening to sales calls. The firm's partner started calling, eyes careful, mouths taut. I created a buffer around Alicia. Hospital security, restricted visitors, a lawyer asked to be on speed dial. I used the press quietly. A contact released a thinly edited story that didn't name names but got tongues wagging. It applied pressure without breaking the fragile police case. I felt the moral weight of that, but the pieces were moving, and that gave me something close to relief.
The detective, Carlos, a man who'd seen too much, called me one evening with something that made me feel like I had a tether again. A contractor associated with Fernando, a man named Ramirez, had been spotted hauling boxes late at night. The contractor had a past. He'd done jobs. The image on Alicia's laptop, a shadowy photo she'd taken, matched a pickup truck. Ramirez eventually gave up locations, an abandoned warehouse, boxes of documents, and worse, medical supplies and syringes. A bad plan had been hatched, one meant to make the fall look like a tragic accident, and maybe, if it went further, to ensure I'd be out of the way. I remember calling Diana and hearing her voice clip between excuses and panic. She insisted it was nothing, that she'd never hurt our daughter. I'd heard the recording. I knew the cadence of lies. But I let the police do their thing and kept a watchful eye on everyone who came and went from Alicia's room. Ramirez was arrested. When he began to talk, the puzzle came together fast. He admitted he'd helped stage things, move boxes, and that Fernando had been orchestrating the financial maneuvering. He didn't initially know Alicia's name, he said. He thought he was making things look convincing. The guilt in his tone didn't make me kinder. It made me quieter. The arrest of Diana and Fernando came after. The evidence, the camera, the messages, the offshore trail, Ramirez's testimony, tied them to an attempt to cover up what they'd done. They were taken away that day in front of the news cameras, both screaming their version of confusion. I said nothing. Saying anything seemed cheap and ruined. I spent the afternoon watching my daughter sleep, whispering promises I didn't yet know how to keep. Court moved. The prosecution built a case that felt like the measured slamming of a gavel, even before the judge spoke. They argued attempted murder and fraud. The defense scrambled to throw anything at the wall. It didn't work. Both Diana and Fernando were convicted. The sentences were long enough to ensure they could not harm Alicia again. But conviction didn't mean everything shifted back into place. Alicia was still in the hospital. She came back slowly. There were small, triumphant squeezes of her hand like Morse code, and then longer stretches of eye contact. She started therapy to relearn balance and speech. She was brave in ways I don't think she understood. In the quiet moments, after doctors and lawyers were gone home, she told me she'd suspected them for months. The secret meetings, the whispered transfers, the coldness in our home. She'd set the camera because she wanted proof. She'd been too scared to tell me because she loved our family in a way that made her hope the fear was wrong. That confession broke me and rebuilt me. I had to face the fact that while I'd been building concrete boxes and credit lines, a betrayal had threaded its way through the house I thought I owned. It changed how I looked at every photograph, every shared joke. But the thing that held me together was Alicia waking up and wanting to be a lawyer one day, to defend other kids like her. She wanted justice more than revenge. In that small, fierce ambition, I found a horizon that wasn't only pain. The company nearly fell apart. Partners jumped ship and new investors came with long, suspicious lists of questions. I opened a forensic audit, restructured leadership, and I learned to mistrust smoothly spoken men with clean suits. It was ugly, it was expensive, and it felt necessary. I also had to rebuild the trust between a father and a teenager who'd been through more than anyone should. The months that followed were a slow, granular work. Alicia's therapy demanded patience. Physical therapy, speech therapy, counseling. She had nightmares at first. Then she had days where she'd run a little farther than the day before. I changed my life for her.
I shortened work hours. I was present for every appointment. I taught her to drive a truck on the property the way her mother had never imagined. Practical skills for a practical mind. There were things that did not return. Diana and Fernando's betrayal was a clean break. The marriage was legally dead. My name remained attached to the company, but the cost was constant. People asked why I had stayed with Diana for so long. The answer is complicated. History is a tangle of fear, comfort, inertia, and love. People can be two things at once, cruel and human, capable of heroism and of violence. In private, late at night, there were moments of an old life. I would open a drawer and find a single toy hammer Alicia used when she was little and remember a laugh that seemed to echo from behind doors that had been slammed shut. That memory is what kept me from turning our home into a fortress of accusation. It also kept me from shutting out the world that helped us. Friends from work covered shifts, neighbors dropped off meals, and people I barely knew donated to a fund for Alicia's recovery.
I will not pretend I was noble throughout. There were times I used the press to make a point. There were nights where my temper cost me apologies I should have given sooner. The legal fights took money, and I had to refinance, sell a few projects, and trade the easy life for the kind that has fewer weekends and more appointments. I would do it again for her. Alicia is healing. She walks with a trace of stiffness some days and runs without thinking about it others. She's back at school in a program that supports her return. She jokes in the kitchen and rewrites my old construction quips into comedic gold. She's applying to law summer programs and debating about the parts of the justice system she thinks are broken. I have scars too. I learned the brutal lesson that proximity is not proof of love. You can sleep in the same house as someone who will betray you. I learned that being a provider isn't enough. You must also see. I learned that the thing I built with my hands could be threatened by the things people do behind closed doors. Greed, fear, shame. And I learned that a father who fights can sometimes do what a career cannot, protect the center of his life. I built a case, trusted good people, and then I trusted a slower, tender kind of repair that isn't televised. Justice arrived in court, but recovery arrived in quiet victories. A first unassisted step, a laugh that wasn't haunted, a night without nightmares.
Update 1. The police expanded their inquiry after Ramirez cooperated. Evidence from Diana and Fernando's phones, the offshore accounts, and the security footage sealed the prosecution's case. Both were convicted of attempted murder and multiple counts of fraud and money laundering. Sentences were significant. Restitution proceedings began for company losses. Update 2. I restructured leadership and invited a new board of independent advisors. The company survived, smaller but more transparent. We implemented stricter financial controls and eliminated the possibility of single-person fraud. It cost us money and trust, but the firm stabilized within a year. Update 3. Alicia completed months of intensive physical and cognitive therapy. She returned part-time to school, later full-time, and excelled academically. She applied to a pre-law summer program and publicly spoke about teen vigilance and safety in online communities. Her resilience became a small beacon in our community. Update 4. My relationship with extended family is complicated but functional. Some relatives avoided us at first, others stepped up. Diana and Fernando's supporters faded as evidence mounted. Today, there is no marriage to reconcile. There is only legal consequence and the work of healing. Update 5. The last year changed me. I sold some projects to keep our finances healthy, spent more time with Alicia, and started a small foundation to support teens in crisis and fund hidden camera whistleblowing when necessary. It's imperfect, but it's my way of turning a betrayal into protection for others. Update 6. People define home differently. For me, home used to be the house with the roof I built. Now home is my daughter learning to laugh without fear. Justice helped, but small acts of care, Hours at the hospital, therapy appointments, teaching her to change a flat tire rebuilt us. If I had one message, it's this: listen to your kids when they worry. Take them seriously even when it's inconvenient. And if you have the means, use them to protect the people who matter most.